Hey, my friends. Okay, so we have our insects that we created. Let me take that there. So we created symmetrical insects. Some of you are maybe going to build them. If you drew them, that's great. Make sure it's taking up your whole page. And remember, we broke it down into 4 sections so that way it was easier to make them symmetrical. We also have them divided in half because that way we could trace from one side to the other. Now we're going to add our designs. Looking at the principles of design, you have lots of different options as far as patterns that repeat. Looking at texture. Texture is how something feels. When we add texture to our artwork, it's creating a feeling. Not something you can touch, but something when you look at it, you're like, oh, that's bumpy. That might be sharp. So here's how I want you to go about adding your designs because we want them to be symmetrical. Again, we're going to divide it. We are looking at half of our insect. We are only going to draw on one part. I'm going to set that one aside and look at this one. This one I'm looking at simple patterns, simple designs. Notice how it's not on both sides yet. When I get ready to do that, I'm going back to the window. So let me go ahead and make this one larger so that way you can see this one. As I'm only working on half of mine, I'm using a thicker marker so I have more room for my designs. I'm coming in and adding simple circles, lines, nothing that's too complicated. I don't want it to be too over detailed. However, some of mine I may go ahead and make thick lines. I may have thinner lines in spaces. Some of them will alternate. As I'm working through my insect. Now I'm not going to do all of it. One of the things that's going to be different is I am only working on half of mine. Because it's folded, I will be able to trace the other half once I get ready to do that. So my insect and my insect designs will stay symmetrical. Now, they do not actually have to be faces. As you are creating your designs, you could just make patterns. Just remember, they will be symmetrical on the other side. We're not adding color yet. That is going to be a whole nother step because I want you taking your time, adding your designs as you are working. We're not going to try to do too many things all at once. Just like we normally would in class, we're going to slowly break down our artwork and do it step by step. So we started with our insect. Now we're adding our patterns and designs. Same with the legs, one at a time, which is why we added the legs as rectangles so they create spaces. Inside the spaces, we can add our designs and patterns. Thick lines, thin lines. Now, because I'm using my very thick marker here, I'm going to have less detail showing. If you wanted to add more detail, And a lot of this depends on what you are comfortable with. I'm going to show you my other one. So whereas this, I focused a lot more on patterns and repeating designs, this insect, I spent a lot more time focusing on texture, making my legs look like they're a little bit hairy. Oh, let me move that over so you can see it a little bit better. There you go. My legs are a little bit hairy. I have scales in the patterns on the body of my insect. When you go back to the website that shows the very enlarged photos of the insects, you can see the difference. So these, the bodies are clearly not the same, and neither are the designs and patterns. Now, I can do the same with these, going in and thickening up some of those sections or coloring them in so they show up, or I can wait to do it with color. But it's the same idea that we had done before. Let me go in. My legs here might be a little bit hairy, so I'm adding all these little hairs. Everybody's is going to be different. Part of my insect might be spiky. They may have sharp details or spikes, which may look very large right now, but as we know, our insects are very small. Can copy that to make it look even more detailed. And come back in and darken that in, so I would have room for color, but then I have this darkened detail here also around it. So I have one more outline that kind of connects it all together. It depends how you choose to create them. Now, as long as it took me to trace the other side when all I was doing was tracing the body of the insect, it's going to take that much longer. So remember, I have my drawing on the outside here. I'm going to turn it all the way completely over to trace on the other side, which I've already started here. So when I open it up, you can see how those patterns and details are lining up. Now, I only did that little bit because, just like when we trace the body, because my paper's folded and I'm turning it over and holding it against the window, I can go in at different times. I don't have to trace it all at once. These designs will be simpler simply because it's thicker lines and it's a simpler design. So what I want you to do is go ahead back, look at your principles of design, look at your textures in the links that I gave you, and decide, let me turn that over so you can see, what type of designs or what type of combinations of designs and patterns you would like to add to your insects. And remember to keep them, because just like we drew the bodies and then created the patterns, we are going to do the same when we're adding color. It's just another step. Those of you who are building yours with different materials, keep this in mind. You may want to go back and look at some different designs and patterns to put them together, so it's not just the insect body. You are creating patterns with the color blocks or even different materials on top of them. All right, so have fun creating your designs and patterns, and I look forward to seeing what you guys come up with. All right, have a good day.